Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. My name's BK. I am the director of the Park Maintenance Institute. It's a project underneath the Pennsylvania Recreation and Park Society. So we're Pennsylvania's state affiliate of the NRPA. And this project that I've been working on since 2 months before COVID was announced. So wonderful time to start a new project. But our primary focus is on looking at building capacity of operations and maintenance, not only for parks folks, but looking at even at a broader sense, public spaces. So looking at public works, looking at land management, and looking at how we need to be a little bit more strategic and creating the tools and things at folks' fingertips that focus on that operations and facility side of the house that sometimes ends up being very reactive and very work order based. And so when things break, then we fix it. Well, if we can keep things running smoothly and do things ahead of with some forethought, then maybe it don't have to be so reactive and we're not so busy all the time. So this topic today, focusing on decorating for the holidays. Now, this is something that Cody, one of our guests today, first came to me and said, hey, where are some of these resources out there about putting public displays out? I've been asked this, it's been dropped in my lap. Where do I turn? And I started doing some research on this, and Cody can fill you in on this as well. But there's really not much out there when you really start digging at the public level. Now, you want to get a consultant, you want to get an expert, there's tons of those out there. You know, you Google, that's what you get. Somebody trying to sell you, we'll set up your lights. But if we're doing it in a house, how do we do this? How do we do it safely? What are we getting into? And so that's where I've started collecting some thoughts here. And so I've invited Cody to join us. And growing up in Allentown, Pennsylvania, there was a lights on the parkway. It was something that I remember going to with my family, and it was a display that you drive through in your car. And so I've reached out to one of the folks that are responsible for that now. So that his story is, you know, I'm not exactly the oldest person in the world, but I'm not exactly the youngest one in the group either. So it's still around, and it's exciting to hear some of that aspect of what's going on today. And it's an opportunity for us to learn from each other. So this is a meeting format. It's not a webinar. Now, Cody does have some slides to share, showing some visuals and things, but this is meant to be a group discussion for us to hit upon some of the learning objectives that you see necessary. What are some of the situations or challenges you're dealing with? And what are some things we can share with each other? So without that, I'm going to hand things to Cody to introduce himself, and then we'll allow Michelle to introduce herself as well. And we'll see if Tyler jumps in or if he's not able to make it today. He's another colleague at Allentown as well. So Cody.
Good morning. I'm Cody Mckee. I am the park supervisor for the city of Mountain Home, Arkansas. Unlike most of you, I am not in Pennsylvania. And kind of like BK said, is, this kind of got dropped in my lap last August. And over the course of 3 days, I went from, hey, we need you to build some Christmas trees, just some string of light trees, to, hey, we also need 80 stands for some floodlights. Then it was, hey, you're going to install the whole thing. And, we had planned for 500,000 lights in our first year, and I was lost and we were scrambling. I kid you not, last year, part of our strategy for getting lights out was my co-chair on this committee would go into Lowe's and Home Depot and stick her arm out and run it down the shelves, and whatever landed in the cart is what we put out. So that was a little terrifying. And, everywhere else we ran into something weird like this, I could go grab a book, I could go talk to someone, there was something there. And that's when I reached out to Brian. I'm like, I've got nothing. I'm lost, help me. And he's like, I can't find anything either. So I'm not an expert on lights by any means, but we learned a lot last year in terms of things that we know we won't do going forward. Learned a lot in terms of things that we really liked to save us some money and make things more cost effective for us, because we were working on a really tight budget last year. It got a little bit better near the end of the year, but it was an adventure from start to finish. And once we get to that point where I pull up some slides, kind of show you, some of you are probably going to laugh if you've been doing this for years and years, just some of the things that we just threw up and tried to make it work. So
I'm using the chat in there to just you feel free to introduce where you're from. It looks like people are from all over from here, Cody. So I think there's only a few people from Pennsylvania, but I'm seeing North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Oregon. So there's folks all over. We all are in the same boat together. Now, our weather is obviously going to be different, and the wear and tear of some of the materials that are being out there is definitely going to be different. But I know some of the things like electrical loads and dealing with the public, dealing with administration, dealing with municipalities are going to be common threads in our discussions here as well. Michelle, do you want to introduce yourself and kind of let us know, what are you, I said you're from Allentown, but can you, share a little bit about what your responsibilities are as far as this project? There she is. I can't hear you. We can see you. No, you're still muted. Oh, there you are.
Oh, good. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle. This is my 7th year working on lights in the parkway, getting everything set up. We're actually out here right now, getting ready to get everything up starting next week. So it's pretty fun. It's like I want to skip Halloween, Thanksgiving, go right to Christmas, but got Christmas carols running through my brain. We have over 300 displays, closer to 400 that we get out every year. We wrap well over 100 trees, which makes a huge difference for our displays. A lot of it comes down to really, really good planning, really, really good inventory, and really, really good storage. It's extremely important in keeping everything running smoothly. And, as we go on and we start looking into more about putting up the lights, I think another big thing is when you choose to start the planning process, because I think the biggest thing I learned when I started doing this was to plan early. Like I planned for this year last year. So as soon as the lights went up and we opened, that's it. I started planning for next year because I can see all my stuff. I know what I've got. And that's when I start planning for 2023. I'll do it in December of this year. We'll get the lights up and then I'll start prepping because it's the best way to make sure you're ready to go for the following season. And being able to see what you've got is super, super important. But otherwise, I'm interested in what questions people have and where this conversation is going to go. I'm definitely excited to see what other people might be doing that, I might be like, wow, that's a great idea.
Well, great. Thank you. And I'm going to open this up. Cody, you had some images, so not everybody here has camera capability, and I can appreciate that. So maybe, Cody, you can give us some of your, since you've got dropped in your lap and you kind of threw things together. Let's see what you ended up with.
Yeah, sure. So this is a little area we refer to as our blue forest. One of the things we learned real quick is net lighting on trees looked really good at the end of the day, but man, they were a pain to get up and they were a pain to take down. And it just, seemed like so much time we lost when we were on a short schedule anyways, trying to get those net lights up. But the end effect ended up being really good. You can see those little shooting stars right there. Those were actually made in-house with some of our metal fab guys, ran some strands down from them. We really tried to keep it as simple as possible. This American flag, it actually measures about 25 feet across by about 15 feet tall. We had some guys from our street department threw that together 2 days, welded it up, put lights on it, went to town. The other one on the other side here, we have a construction company in town that they also run a jewelry store. So they, made that display in-house for us. It was really, what can we find? Who can we talk to save us some money, try and get some stuff out, especially in that first year where we were just scrambling because, Michelle talked about planning in December, and this year we did. We had our first meeting on 2022 in December of 21. But we really didn't even start the planning process for 2021 until September of last year. So it was just pure chaos, it seemed like, the whole time. We kept it really simple. I talked to you about, grabbing stuff, whatever we could find off of Lowe's shelves. Well, these little deer right here were a perfect example that they were small, they were compact. We bought a whole bunch of them. One of my staff members had the idea is, hey, why don't we put some green netting down? Give them something to stand on. And kids loved these. Keeping people out of them was fun at times. I watched a kid absolutely eat it one day. He decided to just take off running through these and found a cord, and he was down in a hurry. So, we've got these candy canes and these tree frames coming in this year. One thing we learned last year was the companies that we were purchasing from were charging us an exorbitant amount of money just to essentially put lights on steel frames. So we had a local fab shop here in town make us up some candy cane frames and some Christmas tree frames, just some rolls, some C7 light cords, and white electrical tape. Tape them up there, get them on there. That's, exactly what our suppliers were doing anyways. They were just charging us a ton for it. And this, those little displays will line our sidewalks, kind of a crowd control type deal, because we'll do a walkthrough area this year as well. But trying to get these from a major supplier or some Christmas corporation, we would have paid double and triple for these little structures than what we did, having it done, basically in-house. Some of you are probably pretty aware of this, but for those of you who aren't, vampire plugs and SPT wire are your new best friends. If you're getting involved in this, tons and tons of footage that we put out last year, connecting strands and everything else. These vampire plugs are really quick and easy to connect on the end of that wire. You can cut it anywhere you want to. If you're not familiar with those, familiarize yourself with them. SPT 1 and 2 wire or lamp cord is what they'll be advertised at. You can get them in big old rolls. So really, really easy to deal with. Really user friendly. I had some guys that had never touched electrical at all in their lives, and in 10 minutes I could send them on and they could run cord and run extensions for me, no problem. We ran through a lot of trial and error. You can see the floodlights there that we had covered. These are like a 400 watt equivalent flood that we paid, I want to say, almost $400 a piece for. We're really excited about them. Put some vinyl covers over them to tint them red. We also had greens and blues as well. And you can see the red on that tree. Man, did it really pop. Everywhere we had red, it was awesome. And our greens and blues, you couldn't even hardly tell there was a light on in places. So it was kind of give and take at times, trying to see what's actually going to work. On a short timeline, we just threw whatever we had out there. And stuff like these red floodlights went really well, and other stuff were like, oh, well, we're never doing that again. And then one of the bigger things we did was, we had money in the budget for marketing, and we went all out last year and had a professional film crew come in and put together a video for us. Short, sweet. We used some of our staff from the college and from our park staff in the video, used their kids, just had them out there in the lights. And now we've got the ability to share this everywhere we want to advertise for our programs. It was really a big deal to get everyone aware that, hey, not only is this happening, but it's something that's actually going to be really fun for you and your kids. So, and that's all I've got on my slides there, Brian.
Those are
just
some,
wanted to run through
some
those
great
real
points.
quick. That way, if anyone's got any questions, we can kind of start a conversation from there. But that's where we're at here in Arkansas. So
those are some great points. Sorry, Tyler. Oh, he muted himself. So Tyler just jumped in. He's with Allentown as well. Tyler, did you want to introduce yourself and kind of explain? You do some different aspects. I know you deal with the public display a little bit more, along with Michelle's process. So maybe you can talk about how you guys intertwine what you work on together.
Yeah, my name's Tyler. I've been with the, hold on, I'm driving, so I'm trying not to be on my phone too much. Here I am. So I work with the city of Allentown. I handle the kind of the roadside downtown decorating, as opposed to Michelle handles the large display. We do a lot of light pole decorating. We're currently in the process of trying to figure out what we're going to do next year, because they put up all new light poles and the decorations we have don't work. So we're in the process now of getting ideas on what we can do for next year. But what we used to do was just put some wreaths on all of our light poles, had bowls on them. So we would put light up wreaths up, and then we would put a bow on the wreath, and on the corners we would put up like the light up poinsettias and stuff like that. The way I kind of get into the work Michelle does is, obviously she has the bulk of the lights knowledge, and some of the stuff we have to fudge together, I guess would be the way to do it, because not everything works the way it's supposed to. So some of the stuff we have to piece together, Michelle has the pieces for. And outside of that, once her display and the Lights in the Parkway opens, I work that shift, and I work the day-to-day operation. So that's troubleshooting, and if something's down crazy. Did I lose you?
Almost. No, we got you. You're the troubleshooter when it hits the fan, basically, is what I gathered from that.
Yeah.
Well, Michelle, maybe you can interject. What kind of we don't have visuals, but maybe you can explain to folks the what is involved, how long you actually are running lights. And so we'll gain a sense. Cody brought a little bit up of some of the wires and things, but how many feet of wire are we talking about? How many lights are we actually talking about? Things like that, so that people can gain a scope.
That when he was saying that stuff, because I use over 3,000 to 4,000 feet of that lamp cord, and then we have an additional 500 to 600 extension cords that we're using throughout, and then we have about 37 sub panels that we're running all of our power to. So you definitely got to plan that stuff out, because I wrote notes while he was talking, because you got to read your labels. It's extremely important, because you don't want to overdo it on that lamp cord. It will burn up, and then that's what causes Tyler trouble later, because I accidentally put too many string lights on a strand, and now Tyler's out there trying to figure out how to power up a row of trees. But it's important to read your labels, make sure you're not overloading the lamp cord, the extension cords, or your breaker in your panel box. So I've discovered that I can handle about 40 strands of lights for one breaker. So that's a pretty substantial amount of strands of lights, but it's something I have to take into consideration when I'm planning the layout every single year. But it is definitely a huge time saver. I know the crew is a big fan of the lamp cord because I buy it in rolls of 1,000 feet because I use so much. But you get so much out of it. Like I've got a crew out right now that started wrapping trees. It takes us about 8 weeks to get everything up. So it's really 6 weeks of getting it up and then about 2 weeks of shifting things around, troubleshooting stuff. And we do a preview night. We let people drive through and give us their opinions, and then we'll try and fill in some dark spots, or, unfortunately, sometimes you're moving complete displays around just because it didn't hit that right angle you wanted, or something else is blocking it. But overall, I think I also wrote a note. He was talking about the cost of things being super high. That's another reason why I plan right now. Most of the supply houses do massive sales right after Christmas. So we buy everything at 30 to 40% off right away, January, February. So most of the sales end by mid-February, and that's even on your big displays. So, you can get a $10,000 display half off, and that's huge. I mean, it really is, to be able to see that discount come. So definitely take that into consideration. Not only plan early, but buy early. So if you can buy while the sales are happening, you're not going to regret it. You're going to be super happy when the next year comes. It's time to start, and you've already got everything. Like, I already have everything I need for this season in a barn behind me here. So we're ready to go. So that definitely is a huge help. And then even LEDs. I'm hoping that most people are switched over to LED by now. We just became fully LED 2 years ago. We had to slowly phase stuff out because we had so much stuff, but we are officially 100% LED, and that's a huge saving. It's a saving on electrical costs. Things are lasting longer because the other consideration is weather. So like Tyler said, sometimes things are working perfectly fine, and then all of a sudden you'll get a rainstorm and he's going to have displays tripping out left and right. Because we've got some of our displays have been here since, season 1. So they're 26 years old, and I can't possibly find every nick in the wire. It is what it is. We do our due diligence. We do our best. We tape stuff off. We replace sections, but it's just bound to happen. Some of the displays are just so old. But doing whatever you can to make sure things are watertight, that'll make a huge difference for people, especially those who are coming through on a rainy night because they want to avoid the traffic. So sometimes it's best to come through the rain.
And what are some of those tips that you have found? Cody, Michelle, Tyler, what are some of those? My dad always says duct tape and a hammer are the universal tools, but so what are some of those things that really are making things watertight, or, what are some of those products that are helpful?
Well, electrical tape is your best friend. And that lamp cord is extremely easy to replace out. I mean, Cody was starting to say that. You just cut it and put new sections in. So as the crew who's setting everything up, they need to be really vigilant about running their fingers through the entire run as they're going, so they feel those kinks or cuts in the wire, so they can either replace it depending on how bad it is, or just throwing that electrical tape on it is going to make a world of difference, because most of these punctures they're small. It could have been like an animal tried to bite it, or it got caught on a rock while you were running it out. So there's no reason to throw away an entire cord when all you need to do is keep water from getting into it. That's all we're really trying to do. So making sure the integrity of the jacket and the lifetime, those lamp cords, they're not going to last a really long time. It's why I buy a couple thousand feet every year, because I'm lucky if I get 2 to 3 years out of that lamp cord. And that's just because of weather and animals and the terrain. We're outside, obviously. It's not running cord in your house.
Yeah, trees
Yeah,
move
squirrels-
a lot more than light posts.
Yeah, and squirrels are a problem.
For sure. They definitely are not our friends. They literally will bite right through the string lights. I don't know what they're thinking. Maybe they're cold.
We actually had on those shooting stars that were in those pictures. We actually had a squirrel completely through the actual clips that were holding the lights in place. left the cord alone, chewed through the clips. I mean, hard plastic, not soft rubber, hard plastic clips, just chewed right through them. And all of a sudden you come in the next morning and here's a star 20 foot in the air that is now kind of an oval, where it was a star the night before, and get a bucket truck out and then try and figure out, okay, how do I keep that stinking squirrel off of my shooting star again this evening? So
there were some good points and questions that are coming up in the chat box, as far as you've mentioned using sub boxes and things like that. Do you use ground faults? How do you keep things from tripping, or is that just, it's going to happen?
Nope, we definitely have, everything's got a ground fault. So you have to protect your sub panels. So we've got rubber matting that goes over all of our sub panels to help moisture from, running into our outlets. You definitely don't want to leave them exposed. I have looked into getting extension cord covers, but as I said before, we have close to 600 extension cords. So that would be a lot that I would need. And even if I got them on sale, would be somewhere around $4 to $5 a piece. So yeah, I'd have to multiply that by $600. So that gets real costly real fast. So your best bet is to take really good care of your extension cords. And as they fail, you just have to get rid of them. Because if you try to change the ends out on them, you're guaranteeing tripping during a weather event. They'll probably be fine when it's sunny and nice out, but the second you get any moisture in those, they're going to start to trip. Again, you can try electrical tape, because the whole goal is just keep that moisture out. So you've got to definitely find what works for you, and it depends on the size, of course, of all your displays.
Some folks are recommending here marine grease or electric grease. Do either of you tried using that in your setups?
We use it in our quasi boxes for our sub panels. We're definitely using it for those main connections, but no, I've never tried it on my extension cords or any of my displays.
And we've used it kind of about the same way Michelle said, in our boxes, in our panels, places where you're going to have some moisture. But as far as our GFIs, we had ours trip. I mean, it's just one of those things, they're going to happen. If we knew we had a good rainstorm, what we'd quite often do is take a little handheld leaf blower, go in early that afternoon, blow those boxes out really good, get them as dry as you possibly can, because that's, our first night. We had a rainstorm the night before, boxes were wet, just turned everything on, worked great. 30 minutes into the show, GFI tripped, reset it, 30 minutes later, GFI tripped. And it was just, constant battle all night long, keeping stuff running. And finally, I was like, nope, we're blowing them out every morning, whether it rained or not. Dew gets in there. I mean, they're outside. It's going to get wet. It's going to get moist. We're in the South. I mean, humidity's high even during the winter. So we just, went to the system of, hey, I'm going to take a blower, go to every GFI, blow it out, and get it good and dry to start the evening and go from there.
Yeah, and Tyler on mine is definitely dealing with that way more than I am. Like it's pretty nice most of the time. It's raining on me right now, but it's pretty nice most of the time while we're setting up. But Tyler has a middle shift. So that's a big help for us too. We actually have a supervisor on site and crew members with him that they're there all night long while we're showing off the displays. So when that's happening to us, they're going right out and they're just resetting it and fixing things on the fly. I mean, it's all you can do, because like Cody says, it's getting in there.
So that brings a good point, and for folks to think about, as a homeowner, we think about holiday decorations. You set it, you forget it, and then you bring it down, maybe April. But you guys are actually spending money and staffing these things. So, I mean, when we're thinking our planning, I mean, how much labor time actually goes in not only to the setup, but the running of it? And then what are you accounting for? And then is that counted for in the costs of going through as a participant, or how are you recouping that? Or is it a service that's being provided to the community?
We definitely recoup most of our money, and it is budgeted in. The cost of the labor is budgeted in. I don't have those numbers on me, and I can't remember them off the top of my head. It is a substantial number on our end, because we've got about a crew of 12, 2 supervisors who set up the displays for those 8 weeks. And then we have us, Tyler, and 3 crew members who will run it all throughout December. So that entire cost is definitely budgeted out for, and it's going to be up there. It's going to be around the $200,000 range, if not higher. So it's definitely something, if you're planning for a new, you definitely want to take that into consideration. But we must, the program's basically been paying for itself for years. So rolling that into the cost of your ticket is probably the best bet.
So we're kind of running the same thing. How we look at it, because we're kind of a joint effort between, our city and our local community college. The city donates to the effort every year, but we just, figure in what our labor is going to cost us, say, hey, here's our donation this year to the lights. It's going to be in our labor and our time. We aren't, as big. We've still got, 2 people every night, 4 hours out there, making sure everything's running, checking on stuff. During the weekends, we have a morning crew that comes in, make sure nothing's blown over in the night, nothing's fallen down. Just kind of a walkthrough every morning to just kind of inspect and check on everything, see what's happened those overnight hours. And a lot of the times it was nothing. I mean, you'd go through and you'd go through the whole display, like, okay, everything looks good, we're going home. And then some mornings you're there for 3 hours. We had a windstorm and stuff's knocked over, and things are disconnected, and it was a process. So, but that was all kind of baked into the equation for us in terms of this is what we're going to have to do every year.
Yeah, we definitely run into similar stuff. We're in a floodplain where we're setting up a lot of our displays. So after a major rain event, we're definitely out there having to make sure nothing washed away, of course, but that everything is still okay and operational. And we've been real lucky. So knock on wood for me, because I don't have any around me at the moment. So definitely something you have to think about for sure, making sure that you're checking on it. You don't want to have a surprise when you come in at night.
Now, I know, thinking about managing public, since we are kind of stewards of this and being responsible and thinking safety. Now, Michelle, yours is more of a drive-through, and so some of the issues, maybe, inebriated people in cars or things like that, or trash that gets thrown out, and some other kind of issues. Cody, it sounds like you have folks walking through. Is that correct?
Last year we were drive-through only, just because of still coming out of COVID. This year we will have a walk-through area. There's a city just south of us, Batesville, Arkansas, that does a pretty large display as well, that they have a similar setup. We'll kind of copy some of the stuff this year that they used. We'll string the sidewalks with lights, trying to create corridors for people, force them into areas and keep them out of areas where we don't want them to be. What they've used in places, what we'll have to in a couple of places as well, is if you're familiar with hog or cattle panels, just big, thick, welded wire fencing, they'll use that in areas just to say, hey, here's a main panel with a lot of wires coming in. We're going to put this, fencing up. We're going to string some lights on it, make it look pretty at night. At least it looks awful during the day. But at night with the lights running on it and hooked up, it's going to look pretty sharp. But it just deters people, keeps the foot traffic out of the areas where it can't go.
Before I talk about some of our security concerns, I do want to hop on something you said there. I lost it. Something you said about, I guess I'll do the security and maybe it'll come back to me. We are a drive-through primarily, but we have a residential neighborhood right around us. So foot traffic is a concern for us. And we actually have a concern with that. Theft and vandalism is something that we have to deal with and handle, which is a shame, but it's definitely an issue we have. Last year, we had a couple of our larger, thicker cables stolen, which I can only imagine was extremely hard for people because the power was on to them. So they would have been cutting the wire with it energized. It was extremely dangerous of them to do that, but doesn't stop people, unfortunately, from doing it because there's copper in the wire. So we are a little lucky that we have the police academy is at the end of our display area. So there are plenty of police officers driving through our park. So that helps us a little bit. And a lot of the neighbors are pretty concerned about what happens in the park. So they definitely call in if they see something. But you should definitely take that in consideration if you're in an area with a lot of vandalism or any kind of crime, because it's something you almost have to kind of budget for, because it's not if it's going to happen, it's more when is it going to happen.
Yeah, when I think of a lot of the locations where these drive-through displays end up being, it does tend to be, down along riverbanks and in greenway areas, and maybe some of the areas where at nighttime most folks wouldn't be traveling through there otherwise. And so some of the vandalism is things to consider. Have you found deterrence in some way, shape, or form by involving the community more? Or you're lucky you have police right there, Michelle, but I mean,
Yeah,
is
we
there
definitely don't.
friends groups or, neighborhood block or something that has helped previously?
It actually, no, not for the most part. I think the community, the city here of Allentown, I think they really enjoy the lights in the parkway. And I think most people they want to see it continue. They take a lot of pride in what our city is doing and what we have to show everyone, because people from outside of Allentown are driving in to our city just to drive through our park. And I think that pride keeps most honest people honest. So there's just a couple of stragglers that I don't really need the money, I guess, because they're few and far between. I'd like to believe that most people in Allentown are helping us take care of it. It's just a couple of bad eggs.
Very good
I think-
points. What have you found, Cody? You developed a new program.
I think that's pretty much true with what Michelle's saying is, for the most part, people aren't going to get into it and mess with it. Like I said earlier, we had that one group of people, they stopped, they got out, their kids got out, they took off and started running. And that caused some issues. We had to, get people back in their cars on occasion. But yeah, vandalism is going to be an issue if you work in a park anywhere. It's going to come up. I know I've got some guys dealing with some stuff this morning on a playground, which, it's just, welcome to Parks and Rec, I guess. Like, it's going to happen. You're going to have it here and there. It's just, what do you do with it, when it does? And, you just got to figure out a way to respond and, get everything back up and running again.
And don't let yourself get angry. You got to stay positive with all of it. There's always a solution to every problem. So, last year we picked up some more extension cords and we just ran the power somewhere else and kept it going. We didn't miss a beat. So you just got to think on your toes and keep things moving.
Well, and that brings a point for folks that are maybe new and trying to think about this. We're not just picking things up at Walmart as far as equipment wise. Where are you finding some of your bulk deals that you're talking about? Where are the distributors, or who are some of those best suppliers to be looking at as opposed to big box stores and the dollar store, things like that?
So we get all of our displays comes from Carpenter Decorating. So they have a lot of different distributors. So everyone in a different area is going to have a different distributor for it. I feel like they're located out in North Carolina.
They are. That's who we use.
You should get some deals. I mean, they got to travel all the way up here to me. You should get it cheaper. You're like in their backyard. They can use it as a display place. But so we get from them, but our distributor is Riley's Decorate Outdoor Decor. That's who's up here for us. So we have to order everything through Riley's. But as I tried to look to find other distributors, it didn't matter. They were all giving me Carpenter's products. So I just stick with Riley's and we do Carpenter's for our main displays. But I do shop around for our light bulbs and our string lights because I want to get the best deal. Wintergreen is a company I've been using for the last 3 years. They ended up having the best pricing for us. But I definitely don't do too much shopping at Home Depot or Lowe's unless it's, the emergency run. Like, oh, we need a 10-foot extension cord, run to Home Depot or Lowe's and grab that. But I definitely have everything ahead of time, and I try to go with more commercial grade equipment. So even with our extension cords, I watch the rating on those and I go through our electrical supply houses. So up here this way, it's a Shadler Yesco, From Electrical are my two biggest ones that I'm running to. but they definitely have a higher quality product than you're going to get at Home Depot. And I'm definitely not putting down Home Depot. I'm a Home Depot fan, but the stuff you get from actual electrical supply houses is going to be better. It's going to last longer, and it's going to hold up to the weather better.
That was kind of been our experience as well, because we did shop at Home Depot and Lowe's last year for a lot of stuff just because it's what we could find at the last minute.
Right.
And just the process of trying to go through all of those lights and check the strands. We had volunteers, every day, the entire month of September coming in, just checking light strands. And like, we were getting real close to just burning out most of our volunteer base because they were checking lights, and we're like, okay, this is why we're not ordering those anymore, because they're going to fail faster than your heavier, better grade equipment. We've used, we use Christmas designers as well. Ron Boland is our contact there. Go through all of our major displays with them. They've really, not only do we have stuff in from their catalogs, we've had some stuff that people have said, hey, I'd really like to see this. One of them for military display. They designed a cascading star display for us this year that was a custom display. So it's not just, hey, this is what's in our magazines, so this is what you can buy. They'll do some custom work as well, and they've been really great to work with. Novelty Lights, we ordered some bulk stuff from them. Man, there's a list of, there's a whole bunch of different people out there. They're all really selling a lot of the same products in terms of your strands and your pre-lit bulbs and stuff like that. But, it's really just price shopping and making sure you're, doing a little bit of research, because we stopped with a couple of companies last year after looking at them like, I don't know how legit this company is. They won't answer phone calls. They won't answer questions. That's maybe something we don't want to deal with.
Good points on red flags. How about some lessons learned from your experience of things? What are the tools that you use to keep yourselves organized? Checklists, spreadsheets, those kind of things. What is keeping you on task and making sure that you can deliver?
A strict inventory, for sure. You got to know what you have so you know what you need. It's definitely extremely important. And then storage was huge. When I first came on board in 2016, I was given just a big giant bucket, like a trash can bucket with a bunch of string lights in it. So it was just this huge knotted mess. And, that year we only wrapped 46 trees. And I was just thinking there has to be a better way. And now everything gets separated. It gets rolled up separately, no more knots. And we have totes. I have about 50 or 60 totes in one of our barns that is it's labeled with exactly what's inside of it, the color, it's all divided by color. And we went from losing about 40% of our string lights a year to less than 10%. And those ones that we are losing now, it's more because of the animals and the terrain concerns that we come across. Because the string lights we buy have fuses that I can change out, so I can try and get a use there. And I also know that I can get about 4 to 5 years out of a strand of lights. So learning that process has helped, but the storage was a key factor there. Going from losing 30 to 40% to less than 10 has been a huge cost saver. So making sure that you are putting them away where animals can't get to them, mice aren't getting to them, and it's not a knotted mess. Because while you're trying to unknot it, you could break it. It could have been working perfectly fine, but as you were pulling those string lights apart, you start ripping at that cord and it starts fraying, and before you know it, you just cut it in half anyway. I think the other consideration is weather. If it's raining while we're doing a takedown, I will not take down string lights, because if you're taking them down while it's raining, now you've got all that moisture in your totes and on your string lights. So you're wrapping them all up wet, and it's going to cause corrosion while it's sitting in my tote. So what was the point of me doing that? So I make sure it's dry out. So when I'm putting everything away, I'm not introducing anything into my totes that's going to cause any type of obstruction to my string lights. I mean, I don't know if I can flip my camera. Can I do that? I don't know if it would let me. It's like it doesn't want to let me. But I'm at our barn right now where we actually store all of our lights. And it's all about making sure that we don't have too much on top of each other. Everything is with itself, but making sure you don't put too much weight on things or pile things up on each other, because all of our displays are stainless steel. So I don't want to cause too much warping to them. So that's definitely a big importance too. And as you see any kind of rust damage, if there's something you can do right off the bat, I would suggest doing it. I think that's caused some of our issues for us now, because obviously those of us here now, we're not here 26 years ago when this started, but the newer displays we're buying, we're trying to be more vigilant about not tossing them around. And if we do see some rust, we can take care of it right away so it doesn't become an issue, which ironically enough reminded me of the thing I wanted to say to Cody earlier, which was making sure that it just stays, dry. When you go to put things away, you don't want it to have all this water on things. And I don't remember how that tied to what Cody had said earlier, but the weather is what really hurts us the most.
I think that was probably of the two investments we made pretty much up front last year when we started, from talking to people, like Michelle, that have had issues, have done this for years, have had issues. We invested in two things that have made a world of difference. One, storage. We got some shipping containers that were watertight, pest tight, rodent tight, that we knew were going to be dry and safe and secure for, the 9 months out of the year where we don't have lights out. And then we've got some big Pelican totes that we bought from our federal surplus here in Arkansas. I think we bought like 200 of them that, were just big empty boxes that, lock down snug. They're big, heavy plastic. Would really be tough for anything to get into them, but they seal watertight. So, they're stored just underneath a lean-to at our street department. And we got into those boxes, 1st of September, and everything was still sitting perfectly how we left it last fall. The other thing that made a world of difference too was we installed permanent power everywhere that we knew we were going to put lights. We planned out our trail. This is where our trail is going to go for the next at least 10 years. And we installed, permanent power stands everywhere. So I know a lot of people were running off of generators that I talked to and said that was the worst thing we could ever do, because, you had people out there wanting to walk through and you couldn't hear over the generators.
How about you, Tyler? What are some of the things that you've picked up since you're the one out there having to fix it on the fly? What are some of the either tools that you found that are super helpful or processes that keep you organized?
So one of the biggest things for me that I learned over the last couple of years is that there's always tomorrow. So as long as we can get it working for the night, we do what we can do in the dark, and during the daylight when they have more power, more people, they can, do some heavier digging into what's going on. We luckily don't run into a lot of issues because, like Michelle said, it's in different hands now. So we're trying to do a little bit different things to make sure we don't have problems. Rain is probably our biggest thing. And that goes back to the cord issues where, we might have half an archway that keeps tripping out and the other half doesn't, but it's powered off one side. And so, last year we ended up cutting one and we cut the power and we ran two different cords and we lit each half separate. So it's just organization wise, everything's pretty organized. Like I said, we get the trucks set up, they have the tools, extra lights, extra whatever we need on them. We just kind of adjust as we can. And our goal, if we have issues, is fix it. And if we can't, we just make it work. We'll run new lights. We'll pull power from different areas and just get it through the night. And then during the day, they kind of take a deeper dive into things, when our electrician's here and he could see, you know, are we pulling too much off one spot versus another? And we just leave it go. And if it works, it works. And we let it the way we ended up fixing it. But that's pretty much my end of it. Like I said, I don't want to say we're not organized, but we handle a lot more non-light issues when the lights are running than issues with the lights. So
Like traffic control issues, or
Yeah.
people who didn't realize they had to pay to come through and need to be turned around, or people who are just lost. They got into the wrong lane.
Those
One of the
are
big
all
things-
probably normal things.
One of the big things I forgot to mention that we did that has helped my crew out, especially my setup staff, immensely, is we had our city engineer come out and GPS mark all of our displays, exactly where they go. You know, everything has an inventory number assigned to it on our spreadsheet. Well, each one of our displays is marked with that number on our maps. And, you know, we just went through the process last week of, you know, moving stuff to its new locations, getting it marked on the maps. So, you know, next week when we start putting out displays, I'll hand my maps off to my foreman and my crew workers and say, okay, here you go. Here's the inventory. Here's the map. You know what goes where. If you got any questions, give me a call. And that is just, you know, for everyone involved, being able to explain to them from a visual perspective, because we're working with like probably about 30, 40 acres is what our light trail is spread among. You know, hey, I need this Christmas tree set up right here, and trying to explain that to someone, you know, is way easier when I can point to the spot on the map. It's here between this sidewalk and this sidewalk, in between these two trees. Done, no questions. They go set it up, and it just makes everyone's life a lot easier.
You know, we're lucky we have an in-house electrician. Tyler had brought him up. I should have thought of him sooner. He's a big help for us. Because I actually change our layout every single year. I want to try and keep it fresh. I want people to have to kind of look for their favorite displays, and every year it's a little different. Because I also do bulb change outs, because it helps to keep our displays with a fresh look just by changing the color of something from blue and white to, you know, red and green. Or we have a Wizard of Oz section in our displays. So this year I'll be doing an over the rainbow kind of color change out. But the electrician is my huge help for that, because I've got to watch the load I put on all of my panels. So if I did keep everything in the same spot, that's going to be very helpful for you with your electric as well, because you don't have to worry about overloading it or too much, or checking it every year, because it's always going in the same spot. So every year I have to check, our electrician has to check the load that we put on every single breaker to make sure we're not going to burn up a display or burn up the wire or trip out constantly. So there's definitely a benefit to choosing one spot and keeping it there. I think for the time being, I might keep switching mine up though until somebody tells me to stop, just because I like keeping people on their toes. I have a crew member next to me right now. He just told me to stop. I'm not gonna.
Well, that makes it, there was a question in the chat, you know, have folks considered jobbing it out, you know, taking a consultant and letting somebody hang the lights for you? And it sounds like that wouldn't even be a consideration for you, Michelle, because you're almost you have a crew dedicated to this.
Well, that's true. And we're a union shop. So this is our guys' work, and we're going to keep letting them do that. That's for sure. But it is something that definitely can be subbed out. And there are companies around here that could and would do that. The Riley's, the company that I end up buying the carpenter displays from, that's a company I could hire to come out and hang all the light stuff. And I'm pretty sure their cost wasn't even that bad, but you lose that personal touch for sure. And you lose some control, because now they've got their own foreman and their own crew and their own way of doing things. And it might not quite turn out the way you were picturing it in your head when you pass all that over to somebody else. And I also think just a small tidbit, so I don't forget again, because I feel like my brain is in 20 different places. If you're starting this brand new, you haven't been doing this, and you want to start something new for your neighborhood, your community, your park, do not overwhelm yourself, because it's going to take years. You know, our collection is pretty vast, and it took us 26 years to get here. So, you know, don't put too much pressure on yourselves. You just slowly keep adding to what you've got, and eventually it's going to become breathtaking, and people are going to love the effort that you're doing for sure. So even if year one, you know, you are running to Home Depot and Lowe's like Cody had to do, people loved it anyway. So you get what you can to get yourself started, and then you keep growing it. Every year you just buy one more thing and add to it. Don't try and bite off too much at one time. You will definitely drive yourself crazy.
Cody, you mentioned that you look to the lighting industry, almost the you know, like hospitality kind of side of the house and entertainment. Is that where you found a lot of your inspiration or ideas, or where did you jump to really get you going?
You know, it kind of bounced all over the place. You know, we looked through a lot of websites, a lot of people's home displays, you know, and then just, you know, talk to people in the community. What kind of, you know, what really represents us? You know, we did a lot of wildlife. We're very, I guess, outdoors driven here. We're kind of we're a geographical center of nowhere. We're about 2.5 hours from any other major city. But very outdoors driven, a lot of fishing and biking and stuff like that. So we had a lot of animal displays. But it was really, you know, what can we make work? What works for us? Yeah, it's probably going to be different from what other cities around us are doing, but that's what makes the display good, is you're not seeing the same thing when you go the next town over. You're going to see a completely different display. It's going to be very personal to you and your community.
I think that's a great point, that we all have something to offer. Like, people don't just want one thing to do during the holidays, they want options. So, you know, you want them to come through your displays, of course, but it's great that they get to go somewhere else and experience something different. You don't all want to be the exact same. That's a really good point, because, you know, we're very close to other places. Philadelphia is about an hour from us. New York City is 2 hours from us. We got a lot of competition, but it's better to not look at it that way and just hope that people are coming through us and through them. But that's definitely a valid point.
And that's
to your area, like unique for you guys, so you give everyone a different experience. That's a good idea.
And we kind of doubled up on that theory too, because we have in Arkansas the Northeast Arkansas Tour of Lights. We partnered up with a few other cities and kind of put some marketing and branding dollars together to where there's, I think, 5 or 6 different cities in North Central and Northeast Arkansas that we advertise together, to where you can say, hey, you know, it may take you the whole holiday season to go drive through all 6 displays, but, you know, us, Batesville, Jonesboro, Blytheville, I want to say Newport, we're all about probably an hour to 2 hours drive. But, you know, I mean, I'm going to take my kids, we're going to go drive through Batesville. We'll probably go drive through Jonesboro. And we want people from those cities to come visit us. And we want to make sure that we're bringing something different to the table than Jonesboro and Batesville are, because that just brings more excitement to the community and people from outside. So, because that's really, at the end of the day, what we had to consider in this is, you know, during the Christmas time, it's an economic driver for our community. You know, you get people come in, they watch the lights, they eat dinner, they stay at the hotel, you know, whatever. And that's, you know, that's really why the city's involved in this project, because it drives our economy. And our area is so tourism based anyways, that, you know, November, December were typically pretty slow months for us. And the lights really added a boost to that last year.
And I know we're almost out of time, so it was good that you brought up marketing, because I would have forgot that little part of it. But marketing is really big on our end too. We do radio commercials, we do billboards, we do social media blasts all over the place. The newspaper puts out stuff. I mean, it's very important to make sure you're getting the word out about the displays that you're setting up, or the program you're trying to create, so people know what you're offering them and how to come, how to buy tickets, where they're supposed to park, or where they enter the line. Marketing communication, that's a big part of a successful Christmas display for sure.
Well, Tyler, I don't want to eat into your lunch, but do you have anything you'd like to say in closing? Because we are coming towards the end of our wrap here.
Yeah, it was one thing. I don't remember why I thought of it. I think it was on Michelle's talk about take it slow. We were discussing for 3 years ago a way to hang lights over a road and eliminate old archways that we had or move the archways somewhere else. And that idea just happened last year. And people loved it. I mean, we discussed it for the last 3 years on how to do it, how it could be done, and then it just got done last year. So, I mean, the ideas constantly kick around, but it's just, I know Michelle's a big planner. She plans a lot more than I do, but it's one of those, we try and come up with everything that could go wrong and will go wrong. And then once we know what we're going to do based off any problem we hit, then we go ahead and we do it. And usually it works out, but it's just, it backs on the don't rush and don't get into too over your head on certain things.
Yeah, except that there's going to be some trial and error. It's okay to try something and it not work. It's not the end of the world. So don't be afraid to just do it. Because, you know, a lot of what we're doing, we're decorating for Christmas. It's supposed to be fun. And a lot of this is probably a matter of preference, right? Something I might think looks awesome. Somebody else might drive through like, that's okay. So definitely talk to people, get multiple people's opinions on stuff. They'll end up giving you ideas and you'll be surprised.
Cody, any final thoughts?
You know, one of the things I say often to people is, you know, this project is one of the most frustrating projects that I've ever had to work on, but it's also one of the most enjoyable and rewarding projects I've ever gotten to work on. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort, but, you know, for my crews that are typically fixing ball fields or cutting grass, hanging the lights is a change of pace. They really seem to enjoy it. We have a lot of fun doing it. And you get to really see the outpour of support from the community when they drive through it or they interact with it. So it's a headache, but it's at the same time, it's really one of the more enjoyable things I've ever gotten to be a part of.
Well, at the end of the day, we are doing it for our communities. You know, I'm sure there's some self-fulfillment involved in the process and pride. I can tell Michelle definitely takes pride into the creativity and the ownership over it, but it is for our communities. And that's why we're all doing this. You know, we're definitely not in this industry for the money. But I want to thank you all for participating today. I hope you found value in this conversation. We constantly are looking for more ideas, and reach out to me and let me know what are some of those questions that are burning, some of those challenges that are created for you, because the Institute is here to help build capacity for all communities. So email me. Give me a call. I have my mobile on my email signatures. I will be processing this video and I'll be sending the recording out to everyone that registered today. So you can look forward to another email from me. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Cody.
No problem.
For your time. And with that, I'm going to let everybody go have some lunch.
Thanks, Brian.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you.